Zach was a brave human who loved to explore space. He had a big spaceship that could take him to many different planets. One day, while he was flying through the stars, his ship started to make strange noises. Zach tried to fix the problem, but nothing seemed to work. Suddenly, the ship began to shake and rattle. Alarms started ringing, and lights flashed all around him. Zach knew he was in trouble. He tried his best to control the ship, but it was no use. The spaceship spun out of control and started falling towards a nearby planet. As the ship got closer to the planet's surface, Zach could see that it was covered in green forests and blue oceans. It looked a lot like Earth, but something seemed different. Zach braced himself for the crash, hoping that he would survive. The spaceship hit the ground with a loud boom. Zach was thrown around inside the ship, but he managed to stay in his seat. When the ship finally stopped moving, Zach took a deep breath and checked himself for injuries. He was a little bruised, but otherwise okay. Zach looked out the window and saw that he had landed in the middle of a dense forest. Strange birds flew overhead, and he could hear the sounds of unknown animals in the distance. He knew he had to find out where he was and if there was anyone who could help him. Carefully, Zach opened the door of his spaceship and stepped outside. The air was clean and fresh, and the sun felt warm on his skin. He took a few steps forward, looking around in amazement. It was like he had landed in a paradise. But then, Zach heard a loud roar coming from behind him. He turned around and saw a huge, scary-looking creature with sharp teeth and claws. It was running straight towards him, and it looked hungry. Zach panicked and started to run, but he knew he couldn't outrun the creature. He looked for a place to hide, but there was nowhere to go. Just as the creature was about to pounce on him, a bright light appeared from the sky. A small spaceship landed near Zach, and the door opened. Inside was a strange-looking alien with purple skin and big, friendly eyes. The alien stepped out of the ship and held up a hand, telling the creature to stop. To Zach's surprise, the creature listened to the alien and backed away. The alien turned to Zach and smiled. "Hello," it said in perfect English. "My name is Celox. Are you okay?" Zach was shocked. He had never met an alien before, and he couldn't believe that one had just saved his life. Yes, I'm okay," he stammered. "Thank you for saving me. But where am I? And what was that thing?" Zelox's smile faded. "You're on Earth," he said, "but it's not the Earth you know. A long time ago, our planet was invaded by a cruel alien race called the Zorgans. They took over everything and started hunting humans." Zach couldn't believe what he was hearing. Hunting humans. But why? Zelox shook his head. "We don't know, but ever since they came, humans have been hiding in small groups, trying to survive. That creature you saw was a Zorgan hunter. They're always looking for humans to capture." Zach felt a chill run down his spine. He had never heard of the Zorgans before, but he knew he didn't want to meet them. "So what do we do now?" he asked. Celox smiled again. "Don't worry," he said. "I know a safe place where we can go. There are other humans there, and we can help you fix your ship. But we have to be careful. The Zorgans are everywhere." Zach nodded. He knew he had no choice but to trust Celox. Together, they got into Celox's ship and flew off into the sky. As they flew, Zach looked down at the strange new world below him. He couldn't believe that this was Earth, the planet he had always called home. But he knew that he had to be brave. With Zelox's help, he would find a way to survive and maybe even fight back against the Zorgans. It was going to be a long and dangerous journey, but Zach was ready for whatever lay ahead. And so, the adventure of Zach and Celox began. Two unlikely friends, one human and one alien, working together to save humanity from the clutches of the evil Zorgans. It was a story that would be told for generations to come. Zach and Celox flew through the sky in Celox's small spaceship. Zach was still trying to wrap his head around everything that had happened. Just a few hours ago, He had been exploring space, and now he was on a strange version of Earth where aliens had taken over. As they flew, Celox told Zack more about the Zorgons and how they had changed Earth. They came here about 50 years ago, he said. At first, we thought they were friendly. But then they started to take over everything. They built big cities and factories, and they started to hunt humans for sport. Zack shuddered at the thought. He couldn't imagine being hunted like an animal. But why did they come here in the first place? He asked. Celox shook his head. We don't know for sure. Some people think they wanted our resources, like our water and our minerals. Others think they just wanted to conquer us for fun. But whatever the reason, they've been here ever since. Suddenly, Celox's ship started to beep. He looked at the screen and frowned. We're being followed, he said. It's a Zorgon ship. Zack felt his heart start to race. He looked out the window and saw a big black ship flying behind them. It was getting closer and closer. Celox started to fly faster, weaving in and out of clouds to try to lose the Zorgon ship, but it was no use. The Zorgon ship was faster and more powerful. Just as the Zorgon ship was about to catch up to them, Celox spotted a small island below. Hold on, he said. We're going to have to land. Celox flew the ship down towards the island, dodging trees and rocks as he went. The Zorgon ship followed close behind, firing lasers at them. Finally, Celox managed to land the ship on a small beach. He and Zack jumped out and started to run towards the trees. They could hear the Zorgon ship landing behind them. As they ran, Celox led Zack towards a small cave hidden behind some rocks. They crawled inside just as the Zorgons started to search the island. Inside the cave, Zack and Celox huddled together, trying to stay quiet. They could hear the Zorgons getting closer and closer. Suddenly, a small light appeared at the back of the cave. Celox smiled. It's okay, he said. This is the place I was telling you about. Celox led Zack towards the light, and they found themselves in a big underground room. There were humans everywhere, sitting around fires and talking quietly. One of the humans, a tall man with a beard, stood up when he saw Celox. Celox, he said, we were worried about you. Who's this? Celox introduced Zack to the man, whose name was Raven. Raven was the leader of this group of humans, who had been hiding from the Zorgons for years. We're glad you found us, Raven said to Zack. But I'm afraid you've come at a bad time. The Zorgons have been getting more and more aggressive lately. They're hunting us more than ever. Zack felt a sense of dread wash over him. He knew he had to help these people somehow. But how could he fight against an entire alien race? As if reading his mind, Celox put a hand on Zack's shoulder. Don't worry, he said. We'll find a way to stop the Zorgons. And I think you might be the key. Zack looked at Celox in surprise. Me? How? Celox smiled. You have technology that we've never seen before. Your spaceship, your weapons, your tools. If we can use them to fight back against the Zorgons, we might have a chance. Zack thought about it for a moment. He knew it would be dangerous, but he also knew he couldn't just sit back and do nothing. These people needed his help. Okay, he said. I'll do it. I'll help you fight the Zorgons. Raven and the other humans cheered. For the first time in a long time, they had hope. And so, Zack and Celox began to plan their next move. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to save humanity from the clutches of the Zorgons. Together, they would find a way to win this war and take back their planet. The adventure was just beginning, but Zack knew that with Celox by his side, anything was possible. They were an unlikely pair, but they were ready to take on the universe. Zack and Celox spent the next few days getting to know the other humans in the underground hideout. There were about 50 of them in total, ranging from young children to elderly grandparents. They all had stories about how they had escaped the Zorgons and found their way to this safe haven. Raven, the leader of the group, told Zack about how he had lost his entire family to the Zorgons. They took my wife and my 2 daughters, he said. his eyes filling with tears. I couldn't save them, but I promised myself that I would do everything I could to protect the others. Zack felt a deep sense of sadness and anger as he listened to Raven's story. He knew that he had to do something to help these people. They had been through so much, and they deserved to live in peace. Over the next few days, Zack and Celox worked on repairing Zack's spaceship. It had been badly damaged in the crash, but with Celox's help, they were able to get it up and running again. As they worked, Zack told Celox about his life back on his own version of Earth. He told him about his family, his friends, and his dreams of exploring the universe. Celox listened intently, fascinated by the idea of a world without Zorgons. Finally, after several days of hard work, Zack's spaceship was ready to fly again. He and Celox gathered the other humans together to tell them the good news. "We have a plan," Zack said. "We're going to use my spaceship to attack the Zorgons and take back our planet. But we need your help." The humans looked at each other nervously. They had been hiding for so long that the idea of fighting back seemed impossible. But Raven stepped forward, a determined look on his face. "We'll do it," he said. "We've been hiding for too long. It's time to take a stand." The others nodded in agreement, and soon everyone was buzzing with excitement. They started to make plans, gathering weapons and supplies and training for battle. Zack and Celox worked with Raven to come up with a strategy. They decided to target the Zorgons' main base, which was located in the heart of their capital city. If they could destroy it, they would deal a major blow to the Zorgons' power. But they knew it wouldn't be easy. The Zorgons had advanced technology and weapons, and they would be heavily guarded. They needed a way to get inside without being detected. That's when Zack had an idea. "What if we use my spaceship's cloaking device?" he said. "We could fly right into the city without them even knowing we're there." Celox's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant," he said. "And once we're inside, we can use your ship's weapons to take out their defenses." The plan was set, and everyone got to work. They spent the next few weeks training and preparing, building up their strength and courage. Finally, the day of the attack arrived. Zack and Celox climbed into the spaceship with Raven and a few other brave humans by their side. They took off into the sky, the cloaking device activated. As they flew over the Zorgon city, Zack couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The city was massive, with towering skyscrapers and sprawling factories. But he also felt a sense of determination. He knew that this was their chance to take back what was rightfully theirs. They landed the spaceship on the outskirts of the city and made their way towards the Zorgon base on foot. They moved quickly and quietly, staying out of sight. But as they got closer, they heard the sound of alarms ringing out across the city. The Zorgons had spotted them. Laser blasts started to rain down on them from all directions. Zack and the others took cover, firing back with their own weapons. The battle was fierce, but Zack and his team pushed forward. They fought their way into the base, taking out Zorgon soldiers left and right. Finally, they reached the heart of the base. It was a massive chamber, filled with glowing screens and humming machinery. And in the center of it all was the Zorgon leader, a tall, menacing creature with glowing red eyes. Zack and Celox exchanged a glance. They knew what they had to do. Together, they charged forward, ready to face their greatest enemy yet. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, but Zack knew that with his friends by his side, anything was possible. They would win this fight, no matter what it took. Zack, Celox, Raven, and their small team of humans stood in the heart of the Zorgon base, facing off against the Zorgon leader. The room was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the humming of the machines around them. The Zorgon leader spoke first, his voice deep and menacing. "You dare to attack us," he said. "You puny humans are no match for the might of the Zorgons." Zack stepped forward, his weapon raised. "We're not afraid of you," he said. "We've come to take back our planet, and we won't stop until every last one of you is gone." The Zorgon leader laughed, a cruel, guttural sound. "You have no idea what you're up against," he said. But if it's a fight you want, then a fight you shall have." With that, the Zorgon leader raised his own weapon, a massive laser cannon that glowed with an eerie red light. He fired, and the room exploded into chaos. Zack and his team scattered, taking cover behind the machinery. They fired back, their weapons blazing with energy. The Zorgon soldiers charged forward, their armor glinting in the light. The battle was intense, with lasers and explosions filling the air. Zack and Celox fought side by side, their movements perfectly synchronized. Raven and the others held their own, taking out Zorgon soldiers left and right. But the Zorgons were strong, and they kept coming. Zack knew that they needed to find a way to even the odds, and fast. That's when he spotted a control panel on the far side of the room. It was connected to the base's main power source, and Zack knew that if they could take it out, it would deal a major blow to the Zorgons. He turned to Celox. "Cover me," he said. "I'm going for the control panel." Celox nodded, and Zack made a run for it. He dodged laser blasts and Zorgon soldiers, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, he reached the control panel. He started to work, his fingers flying over the buttons and switches. He could hear the Zorgons getting closer, but he didn't dare look up. With a final push of a button, the control panel sparked and sizzled. The lights in the room flickered and then went out, plunging everything into darkness. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the Zorgons let out a chorus of angry shouts. They were confused and disoriented, their weapons useless without power. Zack and his team seized the opportunity. They charged forward, taking out the remaining Zorgon soldiers with ease. The Zorgon leader tried to make a run for it, but Raven caught him, his weapon pressed against the creature's head. "It's over," Raven said. "Surrender now, and we'll spare your life." The Zorgon leader snarled, but he knew he was defeated. He raised his hands in surrender, and Raven tied him up with a length of cord. Zack and Celox looked around the room, taking in the destruction. They had won, but at a great cost. Many of their own had fallen in the battle, and the base itself was in ruins. But as they made their way out of the base and back to their spaceship, they knew that it had all been worth it. They had struck a major blow against the Zorgons, and they had given humanity a fighting chance. As they flew back to the underground hideout, Zack couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had come to this strange version of Earth by accident, but he had found a new purpose here. He had made friends and allies, and together they had accomplished something incredible. But he also knew that the fight was far from over. The Zorgons were still out there, and they would be back. They needed to keep pushing forward, keep fighting for their freedom. Celox put a hand on Zack's shoulder. "You did well today," he said. "I'm proud to call you my friend." Zack smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said. "Without any of you. We're in this together, no matter what happens." And as the spaceship touched down and the humans emerged, ready to celebrate their victory and plan for the future, Zack knew that he had found his place in this strange new world. He was a hero, a warrior, a friend, and he would never stop fighting for what was right. The victory at the Zorgon base was a major turning point in the war, but Zack and his team knew that they couldn't rest on their laurels. The Zorgons were still out there, and they would be looking for revenge. Raven called a meeting of all the humans in the underground hideout. "We need to strike while the iron is hot," he said. "The Zorgons are weakened, but they won't stay that way for long. We need to take advantage of this moment and hit them where it hurts." Zack and Celox nodded in agreement. They had been studying the Zorgons' movements and had discovered a major weakness in their defenses. If they could exploit it, they might be able to take out a significant portion of the Zorgon army. But it wouldn't be easy. They needed to infiltrate a heavily guarded Zorgon weapons facility and steal a powerful new weapon that the Zorgons had been developing. It was a risky plan, but it was their best chance at winning the war. Raven selected a small team of his best fighters to accompany Zack and Celox on the mission. They spent the next few days preparing, gathering intelligence, and working out the details of their plan. Finally, they were ready. They loaded up into Zach's spaceship and set off towards the weapons facility, the cloaking device activated to keep them hidden from Zorgan scanners. As they approached the facility, Zach couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Something didn't feel right. He glanced over at Celox, who had a similar expression on his face. Suddenly, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. They had been detected. Zorgan fighters appeared out of nowhere, their weapons locked onto the spaceship. Zach cursed under his breath. He should have known that the Zorgans would be expecting an attack. He quickly maneuvered the ship, dodging the incoming fire. But there were too many fighters, and they were too fast. One of the lasers hit the ship's engines, sending them spiraling out of control. Zach fought to regain control of the ship, but it was no use. They were going down. He braced for impact as the ship plummeted towards the ground. They hit the ground hard, the ship skidding across the rocky terrain. Zach and the others were thrown around the cabin, their bodies battered and bruised. When the ship finally came to a stop, Zach crawled out of the wreckage, his head spinning. He looked around and saw that they had crashed just outside the weapons facility. Zorgan soldiers were already rushing towards them, their weapons drawn. Zach and the others fought back, using the wreckage of the ship as cover. They managed to take out several of the soldiers, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Just when all seemed lost, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the Zorgan leader, the one they had captured at the base. He was carrying a massive weapon, one that glowed with an eerie blue light. Zach's eyes widened in recognition. It was the weapon they had been sent to steal. The Zorgan leader must have escaped and taken it for himself. The Zorgan leader aimed the weapon at Zach and the others, a cruel smile on his face. "Did you really think you could defeat us?" he said. "You are nothing but insects to be crushed beneath our feet." Zach gritted his teeth. He knew that they were in trouble, but he refused to give up. He glanced over at Celox, who nodded in understanding. Together, they charged forward, dodging the Zorgan leader's blasts. They fought hand to hand, their movements fast and furious. The Zorgan leader was strong, but Zach and Celox were determined. They worked together, their attacks perfectly synchronized. Finally, with a powerful kick from Celox, the Zorgan leader stumbled backward, dropping the weapon. Zach dove for the weapon, snatching it up before the Zorgan leader could recover. He aimed it at the remaining Zorgan soldiers, who quickly surrendered. The team had won, but at a great cost. Many of their own had fallen in the battle, and their ship was destroyed. They were stranded on this hostile planet, with no way to get home. But as Zach looked around at his team, he knew that they would find a way. They had come too far to give up now. They would keep fighting, keep pushing forward, until they had freed Earth from the Zorgans once and for all. And with the powerful new weapon in their hands, they had a fighting chance. The war was far from over, but Zach knew that they would emerge victorious in the end. They had to, for the sake of all humanity. With the powerful Zorgan weapon in their possession, Zach and his team knew that they had a real chance of turning the tide of the war. They made their way back to the underground hideout, where they were greeted with cheers and celebrations from the other humans. But there was no time to rest. They needed to plan their next move, and fast. Zach and Celox worked tirelessly to study the weapon, trying to figure out how it worked and how they could use it against the Zorgans. Meanwhile, Raven and the other humans began to spread the word to other resistance groups across the planet. They knew that they needed all the help they could get if they were going to take on the Zorgans and win. Word of their victory at the weapons facility spread quickly, and soon humans from all over were flocking to join their cause. They came from hidden caves and underground bunkers, from the ruins of destroyed cities and the depths of the forests. They were all united in their desire to take back their planet from the alien invaders. Zach and Celox worked day and night to modify the Zorgan weapon, adapting it to their needs. They knew that they needed to make it even more powerful if they were going to stand a chance against the Zorgans. Finally, after weeks of hard work, they had a plan. They would use the modified weapon to launch a massive attack on the Zorgan mothership, the heart of their operation on Earth. If they could take out the mothership, they would deal a crushing blow to the Zorgans and their ability to wage war. But they knew that it wouldn't be easy. The mothership was heavily guarded, with thousands of Zorgan soldiers and advanced weaponry. They would need every human fighter they could muster if they were going to have any chance of success. Raven sent out the call, and soon the underground hideout was buzzing with activity. Humans from all over the planet were arriving, ready to fight for their freedom. They came with weapons and supplies, with determination and courage in their hearts. Zack and Celox trained them in the use of the modified weapon, teaching them how to fire it and how to work together as a team. They spent long hours drilling and practicing, honing their skills until they were a well-oiled machine. Finally, the day of the attack arrived. Zack and Celox led the charge, with Raven and the other human fighters close behind. They approached the mothership under the cover of darkness, the modified weapon glowing softly in their hands. As they got closer, they could see the Zorgan soldiers patrolling the perimeter, their weapons at the ready. Zack took a deep breath and gave the signal, and the humans charged forward, firing the modified weapon with all their might. The weapon worked better than they could have ever hoped. It tore through the Zorgan defenses like they were made of paper, sending soldiers flying and destroying their weaponry. The humans pressed forward, their spirits lifted by the sight of the Zorgans falling before them. But the Zorgans were not going to go down without a fight. They rallied their forces and launched a counterattack, their weapons blazing with deadly energy. The humans fought back with everything they had, but they were starting to take heavy losses. Zack and Celox knew that they needed to act fast. They fought their way to the heart of the mothership, where they knew the Zorgan leaders would be hiding. They burst into the command center, weapons drawn, ready for anything. But what they saw there made their blood run cold. The Zorgan leaders were not alone. They were surrounded by a group of humans that Zack and Celox recognized from their own resistance movement. And at the head of the group was none other than Raven himself, a cruel smile on his face. "Did you really think you could trust me?" he said. "I've been working with the Zorgans all along, and now you will all die." Zack and Celox were stunned. They had trusted Raven, had followed him into battle, and now he had betrayed them all. But they knew that they couldn't let this stop them. They had come too far to give up now. They raised their weapons and prepared to fight, ready to take on both the Zorgans and the traitors in their midst. The fate of the planet hung in the balance, and they knew that they would either emerge victorious or die trying. There was no other choice. Zack and Celox stared at Raven in disbelief, their weapons still pointed at the Zorgan leaders. They couldn't believe that the man they had trusted, the man who had led them into battle, was actually working with the enemy. "Why?" Zack asked, his voice filled with anger and betrayal. "Why would you do this?" Raven laughed, a cold and cruel sound. "Why not?" he said. "The Zorgans offered me power, wealth, and a chance to rule over this pathetic planet, and all I had to do was sell out my own kind." Celox shook his head. "You're a traitor," he said. "A coward. You don't deserve to call yourself a human." Raven's face twisted with rage. "And you're a fool," he said. "You think you can win this war. You think you can defeat the Zorgans. They are too powerful, too advanced. And now, with me on their side, they are unstoppable." He raised his own weapon, a sleek and deadly-looking device that glowed with a sickly green light. "Surrender now," he said, "and I might let you live. Fight, and you will all die." Zack and Celox exchanged a glance. They knew that they were outnumbered and outgunned, but they also knew that they couldn't give up. Not now, not after everything they had fought for. They made their decision in a split second. With a yell of defiance, they charged forward, firing their weapons at the Zorgan leaders and the traitorous humans who stood with them. The battle was fierce and bloody. The Zorgan weapons were powerful, and they cut through the human fighters like they were nothing. But the humans fought back with everything they had, their modified weapon glowing brightly in the darkness. Zack and Celox fought their way through the chaos, their eyes locked on Raven. They knew that they had to take him out, had to stop him before he could do any more damage. But Raven was a skilled fighter, and he knew the Zorgon weapons well. He dodged and weaved, firing back at Zack and Celox with a grin on his face. "You can't win," he taunted them. "You're nothing but a couple of pathetic humans. You're no match for me." Zack gritted his teeth. "We'll see about that," he said. He and Celox launched themselves at Raven, their weapons blazing. They fought hand to hand, their movements fast and furious. Raven was strong, but Zack and Celox were filled with a righteous fury that gave them strength. Finally, with a powerful blast from their modified weapon, they managed to knock Raven to the ground. He lay there, stunned and bleeding, his weapon shattered beside him. Zack stood over him, his weapon pointed at Raven's head. "It's over," he said. "You've lost." But Raven just laughed. "You think this is over?" he said. "You have no idea what you're up against. The Zorgons will never stop, never rest until they have conquered this planet and enslaved all of humanity. And I will be there, ruling over you all, forever." Zack's finger tightened on the trigger. He knew that he should kill Raven, put an end to his treachery once and for all. But something stopped him. He looked over at Celox, who shook his head. "No," Celox said. "We're not like them. We're not murderers. We're better than that." Zack hesitated for a moment, then lowered his weapon. He knew that Celox was right. They had to be better than the Zorgons, had to show that humanity was worth fighting for. He turned to the other humans, who were still battling the Zorgon soldiers. "Surrender," he shouted. "Lay down your weapons and surrender, and we will show you mercy. Fight, and you will die." To his surprise, many of the humans did as he said. They laid down their weapons and raised their hands in surrender, their faces filled with shame and regret. The Zorgon soldiers, seeing that they were outnumbered and outmatched, began to flee. They ran for their ships, desperate to escape before the humans could capture them. Zack and Celox watched as the last of the Zorgon ships disappeared into the sky. They knew that the war was not over, that there would be many more battles to come. But for now, they had won. They had defeated the Zorgon leaders and the traitors in their midst, and they had shown that humanity would never give up, never stop fighting for their freedom. As they stood there, surrounded by the cheering human fighters, Zack felt a sense of pride and hope that he had never known before. They had done the impossible, had beaten back the alien invaders, and taken back their planet. And he knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as one people, united in their love for their home and their determination to protect it.